There's a point in retirement where nothing is technically wrong, but something quietly changes. Not all at once, not in a way you can clearly point to. It starts as a feeling that you can't really name it. Like everything is supposed to feel right, but it doesn't. And most people ignore it at first because on paper, everything is right. Let's face it, you made it. You're retired. You're free. So why does it feel like something's missing? At the beginning, retirement feels like relief. There's no alarms, there's no schedules, there's no pressure waiting for you in the morning. You wake up and you realize something strange. There's nothing I have to do today. And that feels incredible at first, almost like a reward you've been waiting years for. And the first few weeks, they're usually perfect. You sleep more, you move slower, you finally do things you didn't have time for before. And for a while you think, this is what I worked for. And it is, at least at first. But then something starts to happen. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like a problem. It just shows up in the background of normal life. One day you wake up and there's just no urgency to do anything. There's no natural start. There's no built-in structure. Just open time. And really, open time sounds good until you realize it doesn't organize itself. And this is where the shift begins, because during your working years, you didn't notice how much structure your life actually had. Not just your job, but everything around it. You woke up at the same time, you left the house, you interacted with people all day, you had places you had to be. Even your free time had limits. You couldn't spend all day doing nothing because there wasn't all day to spend. But in retirement, that structure, it disappears. And at first, it feels like freedom. But structure wasn't just controlling your time. It was shaping your behavior, including something most people don't think about, your spending. Because when your time had limits, your money had limits too. Not consciously, not anything important, just naturally. You didn't go out every day. You didn't buy things just to fill the silence. You didn't need to. Your life already had shape. Now that shape is gone, and slowly something else takes its place. At first it's harmless. You go out a little bit more. You treat yourself a little bit more. You try new routines. You stay busy because empty time feels uncomfortable when you're not used to it. And none of this feels like a mistake. That's the important part. Nothing feels wrong. In fact, it feels like adjustment. Like learning how to live this new phase of your life. But here's where things start to shift without you noticing. When there's no structure, your time becomes something you have to fill. And filling time usually costs something, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. A coffee here, a lunch date there, a small purchase online, a short trip that makes sense. Nothing big, nothing dramatic, just life happening. And because it all feels reasonable in the moment, you don't question it. You've earned this. You've worked for decades. Why shouldn't you enjoy it? And that logic makes perfect sense, which is exactly why it's so hard to notice what's happening, because something is happening, but it's not a sudden change. It's a slow drift, one small decision at a time. And the strange part, your lifestyle doesn't feel like it's changing. You still see yourself the same way. You're just living your life, still being careful, still aware, still being responsible, but your baseline's moving quietly, without permission. What used to be occasional spending becomes routine spending. What used to be routine becomes normal. And normal's where things get dangerous, folks, because normal doesn't feel like anything to question. This is the moment most retirees never notice, because there's no warning sign, there's no alarm, there's no single mistake, just a gradual shift in behavior that feels completely justified at every step. And then one day you look at your spending and something doesn't line up, not in a dramatic way, not in a panic way, Just a quiet realization, this is more than I expected. And the first reaction is usually confusion because nothing obviously changed. You didn't buy anything huge. You didn't go on some wild spending spree. You didn't do anything irresponsible. So where did it come from? Folks, that's the uncomfortable question. It didn't come from one thing. It came from everything. The accumulation of small, reasonable decisions stacked up over time. And this is where retirement starts to feel different. Not because something is going wrong, but because something is no longer invisible. You start noticing patterns. How often you go out, how often you spend, how easily just this once becomes normal. And once you see it, you can't really unsee it. But here's the part that makes this so difficult. None of it feels wrong while it's happening. That's what makes it powerful. Every decision feels justified in isolation. It's only when you step back that the pattern becomes visible. And this is the moment that creates that strange feeling people describe all the time, that off feeling, because everything looks fine, but doesn't quite feel stable. Not because retirement's failing you, but because structure's gone. And structure was doing more work than you realized. It wasn't just organizing your day, it was regulating your behavior without you even thinking about it. And once it's gone, you have to consciously replace it. Or it gets replaced for you, slowly, automatically, through habit. And habits are powerful in retirement because time gives them room to grow without interruption, without pressure, without correction. So what looks like freedom at first can quietly turn into drift. Not in a catastrophic way, but in a way that slowly reshapes your expectations. And the most dangerous part, it still feels like freedom, even while it's changing things in the background. So what do you do with that? You don't need to overreact. You don't need to restrict everything you enjoy. That's not the point. The point is awareness, noticing the small shifts early enough to understand them before they become your new normal without you realizing it. Because retirement doesn't usually change through big decisions. No, it changes through small ones, repeated often enough that they stop feeling like decisions at all. And if there's one thing to take from this, it's this. The most important changes in retirement, they don't feel like changes while they're happening. They feel like life, until one day you realize life's moved further than you expected. And that's the moment most people aren't prepared for. Not the day they retire, but the quiet shift that comes after. When everything still looks fine, but something finally feels different. And this is the part most people miss. That off feeling doesn't just go away on its own. In fact, for a lot of retirees, it's the very first step in something much bigger. So next week, we're going to look at how good retirees, people who did everything right, still ended up drifting off track without realizing it. So folks, thanks for spending some of your day with me today, and I'll see you in the next video. Y'all take care.